These weren't your average rap beefs. These were wars, setup calls, gun draws, FBI raids, and careers that never recovered. Behind the charts and the fame, hip-hop's most dangerous feuds were happening in real time. From the Bay to New Orleans, from Queensbridge to Compton, some ended in near-death moments, others sparked national investigations, and a few, well, those stories still get whispered today. Now this is the real history of hip-hop's forgotten wars, the ones that changed the culture forever, and it all starts with one moment, a near setup that almost cost the Notorious B.I.G. his life. It started with one number, 0. In the mid-90s, Biggie was on top of the world. Ready to Die had made him untouchable, and every interview felt like gospel. So when a West Coast radio show asked him to rate other rappers, he didn't hold back. When E-40's name came up, Biggie, probably joking, maybe not, gave him a 0 out of 10. But in the Bay, that wasn't funny. Word spread fast, twisting into something bigger than a joke. In E-40's hometown, it felt like a straight insult, a message that the East Coast didn't respect the Bay. Weeks later, Biggie was booked for a tiny club show in Sacramento, but the vibe was off from the moment he arrived. Small crowd, unfamiliar faces, and a strange tension in the air. It didn't look like a regular gig, it looked like a setup. After the show, cars boxed in Biggie's limo. According to witnesses, armed men surrounded it. Some say there was a Desert Eagle involved, others say the guns never left their jackets. Then came the call that changed everything. Biggie reached out directly to E-40. The Bay legend picked up, ready for confrontation, but what he got was an apology. Biggie told him he'd been drunk during that interview and didn't mean to disrespect him or his city. In E-40's words, those 5 minutes on the phone probably saved Biggie's life. The cars rolled out, the tension cooled, and what could have become another East-West tragedy ended in calm. But the message was clear. In the 90s, words carried real-world consequences, and on the other side of the country, another feud was about to prove it. One where the lyrics and the bodies started piling up. While the East and West were dominating headlines down in New Orleans, another war was brewing, and it was way more personal. This one wasn't about coast pride or record sales. It was about territory, ego, and who really ran the city. On one side was Mystikal, the explosive rapper from Big Boy Records known for his wild delivery and raw aggression. On the other was UNLV, signed to Cash Money Records backed by Baby and Slim, the same powerhouse that would later give us Lil Wayne and Juvenile. The tension started small. A few subliminal shots in early tracks. Mystikal dropped lines that sounded like playful competition, but in New Orleans, people read between the lines. Then UNLV fired back with a brutal diss track. Drag Him in the River. It didn't just go after Mystikal's skill, it attacked his manhood, his image, even his family. Suddenly, this wasn't music anymore, it was personal warfare. Shows got cancelled, street fights broke out, and the energy in the city turned dangerous. Mystikal and UNLV couldn't be in the same building without tension. And then came tragedy. Yella Boy, one of UNLV's members, was murdered outside a New Orleans housing project. The case went cold, but everyone in the city had their own theory. Some said it was connected to the feud, others said it was street politics that had nothing to do with music. What's certain is that the king cast a shadow over the whole scene, marking the first time a Cash Money beef spilled into real violence. And as the city mourned, the message was clear. In New Orleans, rap beefs weren't just lyrical, they could cost you your life, but this wouldn't be the last time a dispute over music and money turned deadly. Because up north in Manhattan, another conflict was about to explode, one that started with a verse and ended with a raid. This next one sounds like something out of a movie, but it really happened. Picture this, mid-2000s New York, Mobb Deep, legends from Queensbridge, untouchable after classics like The Infamous. Then there's Tru Life, an underground MC from the Lower East Side, hungry, respected, and fearless. The tension started over something simple, a verse. Tru Life paid for an exclusive Mobb Deep feature. But when the song dropped, he found out Prodigy had used the exact same verse somewhere else. To most people, that's just bad business. To Tru Life, that was straight disrespect. He called, he waited, he called again, but Mobb Deep never responded. So he decided to handle it himself. According to reports, Tru Life and his crew stormed Mobb Deep's Manhattan studio one night, armed and ready to send a message. People in the room described it like a scene out of Paid in Full, masks, guns, and pure chaos. One shot went off inside the building. Everyone hit the floor. Some accounts say Tru Life pistol whipped a few of Mobb Deep's guys. Others claim the weapons never went off after that first warning shot. Either way, everyone knew who was behind it and why. The wild part? Big name artists were in that same building. GZA, DJ Muggs, even Cool G Rap, but none of them got touched. Tru Life's crew wasn't there for random violence. They had one mission: send Mobb Deep a message they'd never forget. After that, Mobb Deep went silent. They didn't talk about it in interviews, they didn't drop a diss track, they just moved carefully and quietly. In New York, that silence said everything. But sometimes the enemies aren't other rappers. Sometimes the people trying to bring you down wear badges and suits. And that's exactly what happened next, when the FBI went after Rap-A-Lot Records. If you think rap beefs are only about words and punches, think again. Sometimes the real threat comes from the people who aren't in the studio at all. The ones in suits, behind desks. Enter Scarface and Rap-A-Lot Records, the Houston-based powerhouse behind some of the raw southern rap of the 90s. Scarface had built a reputation for honesty in his lyrics and a no-nonsense attitude in business. Rap-A-Lot had given the world Ghetto Boys, UGK, and countless underground legends. But that success came with a price. In the mid-1990s, the FBI launched an investigation into Rap-A-Lot, claiming that some of the label's operations were tied to drug money and organized crime. It wasn't just a rumor. They subpoenaed records, raided offices, and interrogated artists. Scarface and the label were caught in the crossfire. For years, they've been hustling to make a name in the industry, not knowing that their moves would draw the attention of federal agents. Scarface later described it as feeling like we were criminals for rapping about life we were living. The rage shook the label, but it didn't break them. Rap-A-Lot continued releasing albums, and Scarface doubled down, crafting some of his most iconic work during that era. The lesson? In hip-hop, the enemies aren't always across the street. Sometimes they're in the government office across town. The ones who don't understand the culture, but think they can criminalize it. And if you thought government interference was wild, wait until you see the next beef. Above the Law versus Ice Cube, a feud that started with a track and nearly ended careers. In the early 90s, the West Coast was exploding with new voices, and the lines between collaboration and confrontation were razor thin. One of the most underrated feuds of that era was Above the Law versus Ice Cube. Above the Law, hailing from Pomona, California, were pioneers of the G-Funk sound alongside Dr. Dre. Their beats were dark, funky, and revolutionary, influencing everyone from Snoop Dogg to Tupac. But when Ice Cube left NWA, tensions arose. Some alleged that he had borrowed ideas from producers and groups like Above the Law without giving credit. Tracks were fired back and forth. Ice Cube dropped lines that called out unnamed wannabes, while Above the Law responded with their own sharp, biting lyrics. Though it wasn't a violent feud, the tension was palpable. Fans could feel the Cold War in the lyrics, the interviews, and even the beats. The feud highlighted a larger truth. In hip-hop, respect is everything. Even if you're a superstar, ignoring the work of the people who helped shape the sound could spark backlash. Above the Law may not have had Ice Cube's mainstream fame, but they had credibility, and in the hip-hop world, that's a weapon. This beef eventually cooled, but it left a lasting mark on West Coast hip-hop, showing that musical influence and acknowledgement could be just as powerful as bars or bullets. Next, we head east and revisit a battle that defined hardcore rap. Tim Dog versus Compton, a clash that brought cross-country beefs to the forefront of hip-hop culture. In the early 90s, the East Coast-West Coast tension wasn't just a whisper, it was loud, raw, and unapologetic. One of the earliest sparks came from Tim Dog, a Bronx rapper with a bone to pick with the West Coast. His infamous track, Compton, sent shockwaves across the rap world. Tim didn't hold back. He called out NWA directly, accusing the West Coast of dominating the scene, while East Coast rappers were being sidelined. The track was more than music. It was a declaration of war. Compton's rappers, fueled by pride and loyalty, fired back, but in a subtler, measured way, emphasizing skill over pure aggression. The feud symbolized more than personal rivalry. It marked the birth of the East Coast versus West Coast narrative that would dominate hip-hop for the rest of the decade. Tim Dogg's aggressive approach forced the West Coast to respond, not just musically but culturally, setting the stage for larger clashes involving Tupac, Biggie, and beyond. Despite the tension, there was a strange mutual respect beneath the hostility. Both sides knew the feud was shaping the future of hip-hop. East Coast audacity met West Coast swagger, and the world watched as rap's geography became a battlefield. Up next, we dig into a story of betrayal and street-level intensity, Jay-Z versus Mobb Deep, a clash that tested alliances in the hardcore East Coast scene. In the late 90s, the East Coast rap scene was a delicate balance of respect, loyalty, and street credibility. Enter Jay-Z and Mobb Deep, two forces with massive clout but very different approaches to survival in the game. The tension began quietly. Rumors, subtle disses in verses, and a growing sense that alliances were fragile. Mobb Deep, known for their grim, hardcore narratives, felt that Jay-Z's rise sometimes brushed dangerously close to co-opting the streets they represented. On the other side, Jay-Z, the hustler turned mogul, played chess while others played checkers, measured moves, coded lyrics, and strategic partnerships. The feud escalated when Mobb Deep perceived betrayal in Jay-Z's collaborations and industry maneuvers, thinking he was undercutting their street credibility while climbing commercially. Diss tracks were exchanged, coded lines thrown like verbal jabs, each artist testing the other's defenses. Yet much like other East Coast clashes, there was a layered complexity. These weren't random attacks, they were moves in a larger game of influence, respect, and survival. Fans dissected every lyric, every subtle nod, trying to uncover the underlying power dynamics. By the end, the feud was less about pure hate and more about territory and respect. A reminder that in hip-hop, even when the beef feels personal, it's often about who controls the narrative. Jay-Z and Mobb Deep eventually moved past direct conflict, but the tension forever shaped the landscape of East Coast rap. Hip-hop beefs aren't just drama, they're a reflection of power, respect, and survival in a competitive culture. From E-40 versus Biggie to Jay-Z versus Mobb Deep, each clash shows that beneath the music there's a constant negotiation of status, territory, and credibility. Some beefs are personal, sparked by slights or betrayals. Others are strategic, calculated moves to dominate attention, shape narratives, or assert influence. In every case, lyrics become weapons, collaborations become alliances, and public perception is a battlefield. What's clear is that these conflicts are never simple. Fans, media, and industry insiders all play a role in amplifying tensions, dissecting every line, and sometimes even manufacturing drama. The stories behind these beefs reveal that hip-hop is as much about politics and psychology as it is about music. Ultimately, the legacies of these feuds remind us that in the rap game, respect is currency, strategy is survival, and every move, spoken, written, or performed carries weight. While some clashes ended in reconciliation, others left permanent marks on the culture, shaping how future generations perceive the delicate balance between competition and artistry.